Hi everyone, and welcome to our webinar today, all around things of change. I'm Emily German, and I'm the Growth Marketing Manager here at Mercury. And I'm going to be firing a hell of a lot of questions at Leah today, so forgive me if it goes pretty quick. We've got a lot to get in the next half an hour or so. Few things just to be aware of. We've got our chat function available as well as our Q&A. So if you've got any questions for Leah or for me, then drop them in there. And we'll also be dropping a few polls as we go. But before we get started into the questions, Leah, would you be able to give a quick intro to yourself and kind of who you are, where you're from?
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for having me. So Leah Boxell, I'm the CEO of Enablist. And Enablist is a business that I built a couple of years ago off the back of the amazing experience I had working for NHS professionals, where I was chief of staff to the CEO, and I ran the Silver Command to the pandemic response. So getting change done quickly and getting people on board was something that was very much a central part of that. But yeah, so I've basically built my business based on leveraging those approaches and techniques to be able to help more businesses to be able to navigate all of this.
Amazing. That must have been a very stressful time
Very
to
stressful and
be
very
involved.
tiring, but also great to be able to do something to help. So yeah, it's a very
Yeah,
rewarding.
no, definitely. So I'm going to get straight into it and drop our
Mhm.
first poll. Me and Leah have been discussing these, and the first one, I think we should know the answer of what people will go for, but nonetheless, I will drop our first one. It should pop up on your screen in the centre, so if you're able just to vote and submit, and we can probably come back to those just to see if we were right in our predictions, I guess. Um, but many people will be joining us today, Lee, I'm sure, because they've been going through adoption challenges in the past or they're currently going through them. It could be very current for some people on the call today. So, what would be your advice for what you've seen with people going through tech adoption, especially with projects like CRMs? What are the kind of obstacles you see them going through?
Yeah, so I think I'd say the first thing to really start with is what is the why? So why are you trying to do what it is that you're trying to do? And then being able to communicate that and be quite transparent with it. So is it that you're on legacy tech that is just not going to allow you to service your customers that you need to, that therefore is going to compromise the growth of your business and potentially put you at challenges in a couple of years' time? Is it that actually you want to create a better user experience for your staff? Quite often that is actually the driver, but we're not communicating that to our people. And we need to just be a bit more transparent around that. But also, as I say, it's the why and the outcomes that you're trying to get to, and then making sure that you are getting to that. So constantly challenging that, is the project going to stay on top of that? So what are your non-negotiables? You've heard me talk about, Emily, before. In making sure that those are the things that you do make sure that you deliver. And if you're not going to, as you know, my favourite thing is stop the project if you're not going to get those outcomes that you're striving for. So yeah, so I think I would say that. I think you need to be authentic and genuine. If there are going to be any redundancies or anything like that, then don't go out and say there isn't. But I think you need to be really transparent that you are trying to create efficiencies and that you are hoping that you will be able to find other roles for people in kind of more of the engagement tasks and things like that. But yeah, just making sure that you don't go out, because I think if you say that you're not going to make redundancies and then you do, you've just lost the whole trust of all of your organisation. So and obviously you're not going to want to put the scaremongers onto everybody, but these projects take a lot of time as well. They're not over the night
Yeah,
overnight activities or tasks, are they? So I think it's just about thinking about some of those things.
yeah. So I guess would you say note stuff down and be honest is probably the two things you'd
Yeah, and keep
recommend?
and keep communicating. So keep
Okay.
communicating, keep communicating as to how it's going, and when it's not going well either. So
Yeah.
being honest about that. So and we did that very much through the pandemic with the scale of what we were doing. And some of the things that we were asking our people to do, we had to be honest when things weren't going well, and then we would talk them through how we've kind of pivoted and responded to that. So you then learn as an entire organisation, which I think is really nice.
Yeah. No, definitely. And I've heard you speak at many events and always the insights are incredible. And I think one of the things that sticks in my mind of your insights is the why. Why would you do that? And always questioning back to your why. But also when you talk about advocates and detractors in your business. So it was one of the points that we reference a lot here that you said, and we're like, oh, remember when Leah said that? And it's almost the stance of you need to get your detractors on board as early as possible. So would you be able to run through everyone on the call your
Yeah,
stance on that?
Absolutely. So I think the misconception in change is that you're going to win everybody over and everyone's going to come on board. That's not going to happen. That's not reality. It's never going to work. So I think it's just about considering that what we have to factor in change, and especially when you're changing big elements like technology, which is what people are interacting with. Sorry, you potentially could be fundamentally changing their role. And I give an example. So we all know that food shops have people that work on tills, and quite a lot of those people will have applied for those roles because actually they like the engaging, they like the having the chat, they like the variance of different people coming through, but also they might have mobility issues, so they might actually need to be sat down or things like that. We're now changing those, and some of my shops have gone completely no cashier or checkout staff at all, and some of them gone completely to self-service. And now you see that workforce being moved into shelf stacking, which isn't engaging. They're not speaking to the same amount of people. They're also quite an active role. So I think you need to think about yourself. And that's the kind of scenario I always give to people is, how are you changing that role and what does that mean for that person? And actually, if that means that you're changing it so much that it's no longer the role for them, then that's fine. Have that conversation about it and lean into that. But then also talk to them about, we really need your input into the project, because obviously you all know how things have been done and obviously how we want that to be from a user experience. So how do we transition in getting you to help us with the project, and then make sure that you have a nice and supportive exit, and that might be that you help them with their CVs or training or whatever it is. But I think negotiating that, so I think that's the first thing, is that you're not always going to win everybody around because you might be fundamentally changing their job. The other one, which I know you've picked me up on before, is the naysayers. So you will always get people that say this is not going to work, and they don't see it. Get them involved in the project. Like they are gold dust. Bring them in, because they are going to tell you what's not going to work, and they're going to be able to help you solution it. So a lot of people kind of veer away from them because they're confrontational and all of those things. They bring them in, give them a role. You will help us keep us true and keep on track with the project and making sure that it's going to be what it needs to be. So absolutely involve them in the project. They're definitely a key seat on any of my project teams.
Yeah, there's always at least one, if not multiple, isn't there, when
Yes.
they come at the 11th hour and you think we've been doing the project the whole time, and
Yeah.
now you come and like derail it and give
Yeah.
me all these
Bring them in earlier.
critiques. 100%. Whether you're going to have the conflict early or late, you're going to have it, right? Because
Exactly.
it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Now, something we're hearing a lot when it comes to change and adoption is the do nothing approach.
Hmm.
Because of that conflict, because of what could potentially come back at you when you've got halfway through the project or towards the end of people coming back to you, it's easier just to do nothing. It's the most justifiable excuse. It's very simple just to say, let's just carry on as we are. We're doing okay. We're doing fine. Are you hearing similar things? Or are you getting presented with the same challenges?
It's a bit of a mix at the moment, especially in the recruitment industry, I would say as well. I think there's kind of the people that are doing nothing because they don't want to necessarily jump in with big investments and things like that. But there's also people that are leveraging the slightly quieter times at the moment to get ahead of the game. And I think only each business will be able to answer this for themselves. Can you afford to stand still? Is your product, your offering so compelling that it will see you through the next couple of years? And if it's not, you need to do something, and you'll need to find those investments. And a lot of these programs will pay for themselves if they are scoped correctly and you're addressing the right why. They will either pay for themselves in growth or in efficiencies. So as long as you're doing that right and you're holding yourself true with the right approaches, then it will pay for itself. And the best example is, none of these recruitment businesses want to be the next Blockbuster. Blockbuster didn't
Yeah.
see what was coming down the line with Netflix, and obviously then all of the others. So yeah, you'll know how far your offering is from the rest of your competitors. But yeah, you got to ask that honest question, and be bold about it.
I guess it always circles back, like you said, to the why. If you haven't mapped out the why, you're never going to be able to stop it, to start it, to continue.
Exactly.
You're going to be in a
You won't
muddle
make
the whole
informed
way through.
decisions. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Now, I'm going to switch us back to a bit more of a positive note of things
Yep.
are going well. You've
Hmm.
got your detractors involved. Everyone in the business is going to be changing, going through a project, but you haven't told everyone yet. So you might have a business of 50 people, 100 people, and only 10 people currently know. what would you give as advice to the leadership team in informing the rest of that business to make sure, I mean, there isn't hidden detractors perhaps out there, or what's the best way you would recommend to go about that?
Yeah, and I think not communicating is one of the worst things you can do in a project because people will get wind of it some way or another. Either it'll be that there's some meetings that seem a bit secret squirrel over there, or they'll start seeing things in people's diaries, or they will get wind of it. And saying nothing is the worst thing you can do because people will make up a narrative.
Yeah.
So don't leave that blank because they'll put their own things in it. And as human beings, we can tend to be a slightly more negative than we are on the positive side of things. So yeah, so I would absolutely say that. I think it's if you're clear on your why and what you're doing, just communicate that in small bite-sized pieces. And remember, everybody has different communication preferred methods. So do a bit of a range and a mix. And when we were doing the Silver Command, and I talk to all of my clients about this now, do a little bit on socials, do some emails, but also can get in front of people, go and do town halls, go and speak to people in group workshops and give them the opportunity because then you're tailoring for all of the different types, and then have a means and a way for people to be able to ask you questions as well because people will be reflectors and they will ask. So having somewhere where they can go to, whether it be a mailbox or a FAQ or actually just being able to pop into a Teams to be able to go and see them, I think you definitely need to make sure that you're covering those sorts of things. But yeah, the worst thing you can do is say nothing, because yeah, that will
You're
be
still saying something at that
catastrophized in
point.
somebody's mind. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, 100%. We're the same. When we have something new changed, we are all gossipy. I think as a industry, we're all
People
very
pick up on
gossipy.
it. People pick up
And
on it.
you're seeing the calendar invites, you're hearing some chatter. Like there's not really much way to avoid it. The longer you leave it, it's almost the worse it can become. Especially if there's someone that goes, "Oh, we've used that before in a previous company, and oh, we hated it because of this, and this," and you've already got a bad opinion, and you've not even got the product in yet
Yeah.
to know that it's even going to be bad. And it could have been something like it was their training. It wasn't even anything to do with the product. It was just
Yeah.
the training.
Yeah.
And we hear that a lot as well, that people haven't adopted the technology they have because the training wasn't done right. There wasn't any training at all. Or I guess a lot of consultants, as they move around, could have been trained off of someone who's been trained off of someone else, and so on and so on.
Yeah.
So I guess when it comes to training,
Mhm.
what would you recommend as a way to ensure people are engaged, people do genuinely learn from the new product they're implementing?
Yeah, so I think my the first thing just before training would be, because this is where sometimes it goes wrong on the adoption side of things, is make sure that the technology that you're building does factor in having efficient and processes that will support you for the future. So don't necessarily just take what you've got today and then just go and put it into a different type of system. Think and challenge to yourselves, what does that look like from a user experience always round? So not only your customers but your internal teams as well, and how does that work? Because I think that then leads into the training, because I think some of the biggest things that go wrong is people often expect to see the way they work today in just in a different system. And actually, if you are changing your processes, you need to be transparent again and say we are creating these different processes because it will help us be more effective, or it's going to help us be able to grow and scale in that side of things, or the customer experience is going to be so fabulous that we expect to build more and more, and therefore it's going to do this, that, the other. And I think that is the bit that's really important, because then I think you start from a different framing point when you start the training.
Yeah.
And then, as I say, come back to the same things. People will learn differently as well. So making sure that you have the different techniques, you give people the opportunity to delve into content, trying to make it as engaging as you can. Quite a lot of video content is being used at the moment for people doing training. So because people like to be able to go back to it. So they don't sometimes like the stress of being in a session in itself to do all the training, but actually if they can just tap in and out of some kind of video guides and things like that. But yeah, that framing first as to what are they expecting to see before they go into training. That's the people just expect to see what they've got today, but in a different system, and you need to be really, really clear on what it is that they're going to be seeing.
Yeah, I guess it's explaining that we are moving, we are doing
Yeah.
something to change, the why you're changing before you just throw a bunch of training on, not having a clue what you're doing it for.
Yeah.
You mentioned something there about learning styles. I'm going to drop another poll in just as to whether people consider that. But can you touch a bit more on what you mean by that and training people differently?
Yeah, so I think it's not going to be that you can get everybody in a meeting room and literally just walk through the like that. That will completely some people that would just drive them completely crazy. So I think it is about having different things. Some people will just like user guides, or SOPs that they can work through. Some people will like video content. Some people will need some hands-on training, and there will be some people where actually you might need to do a bit more of a kind of classroom with a kind of leader on the training side of things. So I think it's think about that. The one thing that still is always something we've used for years and years and years, and I would still say that it's worth every second of time you put into it, is super users, because having people within the business that people know that they can go and ask a question to, because quite often people think that they're being silly. They're absolutely not. It's a new system, but they won't want to necessarily ask the question. So having somebody that they can go to go, oh, I don't really know how to do this, or I'm not sure what that button does. I'm the worst. I drive Becky, who works for me, completely mad because I press buttons and never know what they're doing, and then she has to try and fix it all. So but yeah, I think it's about having those people that you can go to ask those questions when you maybe don't want to necessarily go to someone you don't know.
Yeah. I guess curveball then. What if that person leaves? What if that
It's
super user
super user,
leaves?
don't have
Yeah.
one.
Okay.
Yeah,
Have multiple.
yeah, and don't, you need to, you're doing something wrong if you're using both of your super users or your all of your super users at the same time, aren't you?
Yes.
So yeah,
Yeah.
so I think it's about making sure. But I think super users will build other super users as well. So as you start going on, I pick up technology relatively quickly. So I only need a little bit of time, and then I'm kind of like, yeah, that's fine. I've worked it out, and now I'm pressing all these buttons over here because I'm trying to test this functionality and stuff like that. So you will create other super users. But yeah, I probably wouldn't risk just having one person, especially for a project rollout, because it's not if they leave, they could go sick,
Yeah.
something could happen. So yeah, so I probably wouldn't just have the one anyway.
Yeah. It's covering that risk because
Yeah,
you want someone that's able, or multiple people that are able to answer the question when you need it answered if there's something
exactly.
urgent. And not every person in the business needs to be trained on every part of a product.
No,
It just would be pointless. There's so much time to be trained on. I'm thinking Mercury, it takes a long time to get into every single element of it. You don't need every single person to know that. There's
yeah.
just no way. I guess keeping in that long-term focus of ensuring you've got enough super users to be able to continually answer questions. When it comes to the go live day, you've done successful training, you've catered for the learning styles, everyone seems happy, engaged, they've known about the project, but it doesn't just stop when you go live. You've obviously got to manage that ongoing. So I guess what are your steps for maintaining that engagement momentum of the usage?
Yeah, I think the biggest success I see in this space is where you encourage your team to really embrace the technology, but also to be really curious and constantly look. So, I think it's this kind of myth around projects that once you go live, that's it, the product's done, and then you don't touch it, and then you replace the technology in a few more years' time. And like you should be constantly be being curious, and even in that settling in period, going, is this really the slickest way to be able to do this? Is there something else that could make this a little bit thing? And I think your people are the best people that are going to tell you that, because they'll be using the system. So I think it's given them permission that if they start using it and they think, oh, couldn't we do this that way? And then that would make that so much easier, because I wouldn't then have to go and press those three buttons over there, and it would just do it the once and things like that. So I think giving your team permission to be curious, and then celebrating that when they are, and sharing those stories, and kind of being able to show what it is that you've done and what you've learned. I think I would definitely do that. And then there will be some things probably that you got not quite right. There's always something that got missed or got misinterpreted or something like that. Be honest about it. I think the more authentic you can be in projects and change management, the better it will be. So yeah, I think it's about being honest, but actually, what did you do to resolve it? And then that will also help people, because at the end of the day, we're all human. So yeah, I think those would be my two tips probably.
Yeah, I guess it all circles back to the involving the team and I guess celebrating their wins. But if there is things that need to change, not being so rigid on them, because process changes, the business changes, you've got to be flexible because your team are trying to be. You
And the
shouldn't punish
market
them
will
for it,
change.
encourage it.
Things are changing all around us, and some of them aren't in our
Yeah.
control. So yeah, so the market's changing all the time. And that's the one thing that COVID did do, is it forced quite a lot of businesses to literally just have to pivot, to be able to respond in a very different way. So yeah, I think, yeah, just don't stand still is my thing.
Yeah. I guess flipping that around, if you was going to say to someone you're going through a project and you should stop, I've seen you
Mhm.
posting a bit about it on LinkedIn, but I don't want to give the spoiler. So would you be able to touch a bit on how you would advise your own clients when it's time just to leave that project as it is and move on because it just wasn't right?
Yeah, so I think we get stuck into the trap, don't we? You've started putting some money in, and because you've put some money in, regardless of whether you think you're going to get the outcome, you're going to still put the money in.
Yeah.
My challenge would be if you were buying a house and you put 200 grand into buying the house, you bought the plot of land. Um, would you still continue to spend the money buying the house if you knew that it wasn't actually going to be able to do and you were going to have to rip it down afterwards? You wouldn't. But we do carry on doing this in projects, and I see people do it all the time, not just with technology, with many other things where they know they're not going to get to the end result, but they still spend the money because they go, but we're already invested. We've already gone down that route. Actually, you'd be better off cutting your losses at the 200,000 for the land, and then going and learning from your lessons. Why were you not going to be able to build the house? Why were you not going to be able to get to the result that you were going to be able to get to? And then learning from that and going and doing something different rather than continuing to spend that money. And it happens all of the time. So I think it's that. And the biggest way to know when to stop is it compromising on your why? What the outcomes you're trying to get to? If they are compromised, you should be seriously asking yourself, does the outcome still stack up given the cost change? Maybe. So maybe you've gone massively over budget, and actually, do you still get your benefits and your outcome with
Mhm.
spending that money? Are you just too late? Have you taken too long to do it? And actually, the market, the industry, the bit that you're trying to do has moved on. Or equally, is it just not going to be of that quality? So, we've all gone and bought something at some point and been disappointed that it's not been what we thought it was going to be. That happens in technology and projects. But yeah, not completing to spend the money if you know that it's not going to get there.
Yeah, like it's okay to call it off
Yeah,
because
and just
you'll
learn
end
from it.
up, yeah,
Yeah,
you'll end up spending more and more and more and more when it probably wasn't quite right in the first place, or maybe it was, like you said, but it just things change. But it's okay to say, let's call it.
and you'll never do it again if you
No,
stop. You'll never will, because you'll either put yourself through such a more rigorous procurement process, or
yeah,
you'll make sure that your entire business leans into requirements gathering, or you'll have better financial control or planning. There'll be things that you'll be like, right, that is it. We are never doing that ever again. So yeah, you'll really hamper down.
no, definitely. I'm gonna have a quick look in the chat just at our poll results, and if there's anyone's got a question, feel free to drop them in as well. So our first one we put in have how many of you have implemented a CRM with absolutely no issues, challenges, or problems? I think we knew the answer would be what it is, which is implemented but some issues. So that's good to know that this hopefully will be of insight. And then we did the can you afford to stand still was a no. So I think it's always the similar answer to what you shared, Leah. It's not enough when you question your business truly just to continue as you are.
Yeah.
And then a bit of a mixed response on do you consider learning styles when planning training? Most people said yes, but we did have a couple to say no. So I
Mm.
guess that's promising
Yeah,
that people
hopefully,
are
but
already considering it.
yeah,
Um, Outside of that, no one has asked the question. So I can only assume
quiet
that
group
you've,
today.
yeah, quiet group, or that you've just answered everything they could possibly have asked.
There you go, let's hope.
Is there anything else you want to touch on before we wrap?
No, I don't think so. I think there's a misconception that change management and projects need to be really complex, and this big thing. It doesn't. It can be really simple, but it's just about having some of the key components in place that will get you there. So yes, I think it's just remembering that.
Nice. Now, we've been given a free insight by Leah, which I'm going to shout out, which is a complimentary business audit. Oh, there's a question. Interrupted me. So, there's a question for you, Leah, of how important is it to know what success looks like at the start?
So it is really important. I think you'll go through discovery. So you need to know what is the value you're chasing. So what is the outcome you're trying to get to? What is it? To even know whether it's worth investing in. But as you kind of come out of your discovery, you'll be able to understand whether you are going to get to that result and how much of that result you're expecting. And that's one of your non-negotiables. So It could be that you're trying to drive a better user experience for your customers. It could be that an added benefit would be that it's got single sign-on. Um, which of those is going to be the bit that's going to actually drive the value that means that you're not going to compromise? So I think from that perspective, it's getting really, really clear around that, because there'll be a whole host of benefits to doing these projects, but which are the ones that are your non-negotiables that will say whether actually it was worth the investment? Because let's be honest, technology costs a lot of money. None of it's cheap, so it needs to make sure that it returns the value. So yes, I would say that.
No, definitely. We've had another one related to super users, and it's how do you choose your super user? Or I guess you said users.
Yeah. So they need to be people that can communicate in a whole variant of ways. I think that the big thing for me is they need to believe in what the project is doing, and the super users, because they are the front point of people from an engagement perspective. And a lot of these projects do go horribly wrong at the adoption piece. So you get through the project, it all gets delivered, you get the requirements, and then actually it falls flat because we can't just get people to engage with the system. And sometimes that is because you don't have the right people speaking to those users who are trying to get up to speed on it. So they need to be, I would say, an engaging person who can actually believe and see in why the project is being done and actually the results it's going to bring. Because I think just by that enthusiasm, you'll naturally bring people with you. So I would say that there would probably be some key characteristics I'd look out for.
Yeah, definitely. Another one, does Leah think engagement plays a role in change adoption? And if so, how can we still deliver change initiatives when dealing with disengaged staff?
So I think I just answered that by saying
Yeah,
engagement does. So
literally.
yeah, absolutely. So that was well timed. Why are the staff disengaged? That you need to understand that, and then whether you can pivot into it. Now, it might be that they're frustrated with their job. Why are they frustrated with their job? I love the question why, and I didn't love it when my children were at that 4 or 5 year old stage and they asked it all the time. But if you can keep asking that until you get to actually what is the root cause of their frustration. It could be actually they're just frustrated, they're not enjoying their job, it's not necessarily what they worked out or thought that it was going to be, and actually this change might be the catalyst that fixes that for them. So I think understanding it might be leadership and cultural change, and I think if that is the case, you're probably going to need to lean in and deal with that as a project team, and raise that with the leadership teams that you're dealing with, to try and address it, because you don't want that hampering. But I think if you can have an engaged an engaged an engaged approach around the change adoption and the way that you're dealing with your users, you will bring most of them on. But again, I caveat with, you're not going to win everyone. There'll always be some people that it's not going to be the right thing for them. So just have that in consideration.
Yeah. I think the one thing I'm going to remember from this is the why. Just always ask the why at
Yeah.
every stage, the start, middle, end,
Yeah.
throughout.
Why are we still doing
Because,
this?
yeah, exactly. And transparency, actually, two
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
Being transparent from communication throughout it, with I guess with yourself when you're
Yeah.
doing the project as to whether it
Yeah.
should
Be honest with
continue or
yourself.
stop,
Yeah. Yeah.
is
Exactly that.
all of them. So I guess that will be something that you will be talking about with complimentary business audit that you're going to offer everyone
Yeah.
on the call. So I will drop a link to that in the follow up, as well as the meeting recording. So if anyone wants to send it across to team members or others, of course, feel free to send it across. If there's anything else, Leah, you want to mention, I guess how can people contact you?
I'm on
LinkedIn, is
LinkedIn.
that good?
Yeah, LinkedIn. So my surname's Boxell, is Boxell. People always go, I can't find you, but they're looking Boxell. So it is Leah Boxell, Boxell. We've got an Enablers business page, obviously website, all of those normal things. But yeah.
And I'll also drop a link to you as well in the follow up so everyone can
Brilliant.
reach you as easy in case they do misspell your last name.
Great.
But other than that, I want to say a big thank you for coming on today. The
That's right.
insights are always amazing. I knew they would
Pleasure.
be.
Thank you.
And other than that, everyone have a lovely rest of your afternoon and speak soon.
Thank you very much.
Bye, guys.